Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, it will be opening day, Gamecock baseball, and Gamecock softball all take the diamond.
And later, updates on men's and women's March Madness.
Be sure to stick around for head-to-head pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry.
This is the one where there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
I'm always the get-back game guy.
There's so many teams with so many good wins.
Because, they love seeing Clemson lose no matter what.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
Yeah,
Return of the King released 20 years ago today. There you go. And for that reason, give me the Noles.
I like being right more than I like being happy.
I think the committee made the right choice.
Florida State did not lose a football game. It's football. This is college football. How can you not be romantic about baseball? It's just such a tremendous sport.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't.
And yesterday was opening day for MLB. Here's what you missed if you didn't get to take in any of the action yesterday, which if you didn't, I kind of feel sorry for you because it was a great day of baseball, Spencer.
And baseball's back. I mean, there's nothing better. I rocked my baseball tie today. The opening first game of opening day, Yankees Brewers in New York. It was a really good one. Came down to the wire. Devin Williams almost blowing a save against his former team, but he finally got it done. And again, a leadoff homer from Austin Wells. He's the first catcher to ever hit a leadoff homer on opening day in MLB history.
And that one, he just rocketed it into the short porch. It was 104 off the bat, and
a homer and only one.
Yeah.
It would only be a homer and
there was only one that mattered. And Carlos Rodon making the opening day start in lieu of the injured Garrett Cole, who's going to miss this entire season for the Yankees. Having a nice season debut, pitching into the sixth inning with 7 strikeouts.
Yeah, he looked really good. The changeup was working for him. We're going to move on to another AL East matchup here, and we won't spend too much time on it as the O's got the best of the Blue Jays by about 10 runs. Adley Rutschman hit 2 homers, and Tyler O'Neill hit another home run, his 6th straight opening day home run. Again, an MLB record, so,
he's just a cool guy.
Pinning things in the books here. And
then one of the trendiest teams of the offseason, the Boston Red Sox, got off on the right foot with a 5-2 win over the Texas Rangers. Crochet against Evaldi. Wilyer Abreu, 3 for 3 with a 3-run home run in the 9th for the Red Sox on the road. In what was a really fun game to watch. Yeah, it was big time, and the Rangers just really couldn't get their premier bats going, especially not at the right time. But Wilyer Abreu with 4 RBIs out of the 5 Red Sox runs, so really great performance from him. Moving on to another interesting game, it was Phillies at Nationals, and the big storyline here was Mackenzie Gore. 6 innings pitched, just 1 hit, 13 Ks. Ties an opening day record with Bob Gibson, and anytime you're mentioned in his company, you're doing something right. And then, the Nationals bullpen exploded on the launch pad, ruining what was a really great start for him. For a Nationals team that's very talented this year, they're looking to be a lot better than they've been in recent years. Now moving over to an AL Central matchup where the Cleveland Guardians, held on for dear life. Clase blew a save in the 9th inning, but he got the win in the 10th. As Cleveland wins.
It was his sac fly that drove in the run to tie the game. Died about 5 feet before the right field wall. It was close to just ending the game there. The Royals win, but man, what about Kyle Manzardo with a huge game?
He was outstanding, going 3 for 4 with a 2-run home run and picked up 2 other RBI. And then in an old-timey NL matchup, now that the Astros are in the AL, it was the Mets going on the road against the Houston Astros with Clay Holmes kind of getting a little roughed up in his first start since becoming a part of that rotation. Framber Valdez, though, 7 innings scoreless, allowing just 4 hits. Josh Hader, with runners on the corners, gets the strikeout of Juan Soto. The Mets loaded the bases in the 8th and got runners on the corners in the 9th, down by 2, but they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and Hader, he struggled heavily in the 9th, but he strikes out Juan Soto to end the game. And, one swing of the bat could have swung that in the Mets' favor, but wasn't to be on opening day. Again, in Cincinnati, it was the Giants hitting a 3-run homer in the top of the 9th to go up 6-4 over the Reds, or 6-3, and then the Reds tacked on 1 in the bottom of the 9th. but they, their first lead of the game, and it was the only one that mattered there at the end.
Yeah, this was a big-time game. Hunter Green pitched really well for the Reds, but
8 Ks in 5 innings. Really.
Yeah, and Cincinnati and the Giants, both a team that are kind of picked middle of the pack in their divisions, but they have talent that could really kind of get them into the hunt. And then our last game here on the graphic was a tough one to swallow for yours truly, as the Atlanta Braves had a really good start to the game. They knocked San Diego starter Michael King out of the game in the 3rd inning, and they led 4-3. But Hector Neris had an absolute meltdown coming in relief of Chris Sale.
And as a Cubs fan, I saw that about 20 times last year, so I'm not quite sure why.
I don't know why. I mean, you had everybody else available.
Yeah.
It's the first game of the season. You go to a guy who was a minor league deal for Atlanta. That was just a really odd choice, but it was a really impressive game otherwise. Ozzie Albies hit a 2-run home run. He just missed 2 other home runs in the game itself. He got 1 robbed. Drake Baldwin made his MLB debut and had his home run robbed at deep center field by Jackson Merrill in a stupid ballpark. I mean, it's just the dimensions of Petco make no sense to me. Chris Sale had a fine outing, his first start after winning the Triple Crown
everyone's
last
building
year.
back up, so can't expect too much right away. But we are going to move on to our other 6 games that, of course, couldn't all fit on one graphic. So here's part 2 of it. So starting things off here, it was the Angels and White Sox in what were 2 horrible teams last year. The White Sox with a dominant win at home. Sean Burke going 6 innings, no earned run.
And it was really weird that the Angels started their first round or second round draft pick from last year's draft. He's Chase missed all, like he didn't appear in any minor league games. He just went straight to the pros.
Oh, yeah.
Or went straight to the bigs, and well, it didn't work out too well. He gave up 5 earned in 1 inning. Before the White Sox, an impressive outing. Of course, it's against a really terrible team, but hey, Derek Rhoades had a really good first pitch.
He did, right down the pipe. And Pirates-Marlins actually turned out to be a really good game. I think a lot of people were watching for the Skeens-Alcantara matchup. But towards the end, it was the Marlins ending things with a walk-off hit down the right field line. Cal Stowers ending the game for them. And honestly, it was really fun. 8th and 9th inning.
Yeah, it was a game you really wouldn't think it'd be this score with Alcantara coming back after the injury and Paul Skeens being Paul Skeens. Both those guys were pretty good. Skeens went 5 1/3 and got 7 Ks on the day, but it wasn't enough as the Marlins come back. And then we move on to the Cardinals and the Twins.
This one, nothing super exciting. Sonny Gray was pretty good. Again, going into the 6th inning, had 6
There's a lengthy
Ks.
weather delay here.
Yeah, so the game was
the
supposed to start at 4. Didn't start till maybe 6.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a late one. Moving on to another headlining matchup: Tigers Dodgers, 2 of the best pitchers in the entire sport. Blake Snell, Tarek Skubal facing off. Both of them were okay. I wouldn't say it was, again, great performances from either, but again, building back up. Teoscar Hernandez's 3-run homer was the difference. Dodgers win at 5-4. My Cubs were out in Arizona, 10 o'clock first pitch here on the East Coast, and the offense was clicking. They got a 10-6 win behind 5 RBIs from Miguel Amaya and another 3 from Ian Happ in his first home run of the season. Really good game from the Cubs. You can see what this offense can do when they finally start clicking. The other game, the last game of the night, it was Athletics at Mariners. Logan Gilbert was awesome. And then that Mariners offense came alive at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of it's the big question mark for this team. Is everyone knows the pitching is amazing for the Mariners, and Logan Gilbert showed it, going 7 innings, 1 earned, 8 Ks. But who's going to step up with the bat? Well, in this game, it was Jorge Polanco, who was really good for the M's last year after coming back. He went 3 for 3. He had a go-ahead 2-run home run in the top or the bottom of the 8th, I believe. And Randy Arozarena had a solo homer as well.
Also in the bottom of the 8th, so they really just came alive at the end, scored 3 runs there. And, if you get the ball to Andres Munoz, top of the 9th at home, it's 4-2. I mean, you go ahead and
that's the thing. Like
put a 1 in the win column.
The starters can give you so much length that your bullpen doesn't have to be as deep as others. And when you have a flamethrower like Munoz, and for the Oakland A's, it wasn't a terrible showing. Luis Severino had some really good moments, but
he went 6 innings, no earned.
Yeah.
I think the problem was the only person on offense that got going was Soderstrom. He hit 2 solo shots.
No Brent Rooker, no Lawrence Butler doing anything of note. And then the Rockies and the Rays didn't play. Kind
of stinks,
we'll
but
see the Rays' new stadium. In
Steinbrenner Field
yeah.
at 4:10 today. So those teams, unfortunate they didn't get to join in on the opening day fun. But you get to today, but that's not all for baseball.
No, it's not. As after a great start, well, Gamecock baseball is getting cold as the weather starts to warm up in South Carolina. I mean, it's just been brutal. They, blew that series against Oklahoma. They got swept by Arkansas last week on the road. They lost to North Carolina in Charlotte, walking 11 batters in the outing.
And that, by the way, that game was 8-8 in the 8th inning.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody at home didn't know.
Well, South Carolina was down 8-3. They came all the way back and tied it, and then they gave up 5 more runs and lost. And now they host number 1 Tennessee. They're 1-5 in conference play, Spencer, and it just doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon.
Well, the problem of playing in the SEC is, things could get better, but the schedule's not going to get any easier. It's absolutely brutal. You play a number 3 Arkansas team last weekend. You have a ranked UNC team in the midweek. Oh, and then it's only number 1 Tennessee coming to town this weekend. It's really tough. Let's take a look at the defending champs here and a bit of a matchup graphic because, again, those Volunteers, they're really good. I mean, there's a reason they won the title last year. There's a reason they're ranked first again.
Yeah, they started the year, I believe, like 20-0 or something, and they have just been a absolute wagon. I mean, they set the record for the most wins to open a season after winning the national championship. Their pitching staff, nearly 300 Ks combined through 25 games, a 2.26 ERA, which leads all of college baseball. But they have some big bats as well, with Gavin Klein leading the charge.
Yeah, can't fit all of them on the graphic because pretty much everyone in this offense rakes.
And Dylan Eskew is still out. I don't know if we mentioned it.
Yeah, whatever happened there, JP?
Yeah, he was hit in the head by a home run, and he's in concussion protocol now. So, I mean, whatever could happen to this Gamecock team is happening, and it's just brutal.
Yeah, you've got Jarvis Evans is now your Saturday starter who was starting on Tuesdays to start the year. He's already bumped up to Saturday. Eskew's, again, don't know when he'll be back. Becker's been moved away from a starting role. So it's just, it's not going to get any easier, and frankly, things are not going their way right now. And it's going to be a tough time to try and get through Tennessee at home. Yeah,
it's
really tough.
There's not a lot to say. They got the midweek after the Tennessee series against Presbyterian, who's no slouch. We've seen them in the tournament in recent years. So
one thing you can count on, though, Founders Park's going to be rocking. I mean, Gamecock baseball has a devout fan base. They really need to show up. JP, I think if they can at least take one game off the number 1 team, I think you could be okay with that.
Yeah,
Tennessee is just much better, and there's nothing much to say, but, you've got your home crowd behind you. Anything can happen. And we saw it last time a number 1 team came through these parts. It was South Carolina hitting nukes off LSU a couple years ago. Yeah. It's happened before.
Yeah, but, Willis isn't coming through that door anytime soon. And, that team was so good, and they got robbed by injuries, which is very unfortunate. But, We'll take a time away from the moratorium of Gamecock baseball to talk about, hey, the softball team has been outstanding. They have a tough matchup this weekend, however, and really kind of another big-time SEC matchup for them. They went on the road to Oklahoma. I was struggling to call Oklahoma an SEC matchup, but they took 2 out of 3 from Georgia, took 2 out of 3 from Texas Tech, got a 6-0 win over Clemson on Tuesday, and Spencer, they're going on the road to face off against a top 3 LSU squad.
Yeah, again, it doesn't get any easier. It's the same thing as the baseball team, when you're talking SEC softball, especially with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas. You're talking about the best teams in the nation, and this LSU team is right up there with them. But South Carolina, I would say their softball team is performing much better than their baseball squad. Again, getting a win over Clemson 6-0 in dominant fashion. It's been the first time in a while that they finally were able to take down their in-state rivals.
Yeah, they took them down in the upstate all the way back in last year, but it was the first time they beat them in Columbia, I think in quite some time. And after that little bit of a lull where, they got swept by Oklahoma, lost to College of Charleston, and then lost that opening game to Georgia, they've been right back to where they kind of were. Ariana Rhoades cemented her return in emphatic fashion with a 3-run home run in the first inning against Clemson. And then it was the pitching. Neely Lamb was really great. She really almost went the distance, but Clemson didn't threaten until late. They loaded the bases in the 6th, had a runner on second with no outs in the 7th. They didn't score a run. So it was really timely defense and great pitching for South Carolina. They're going to look to continue that against LSU this weekend.
Yeah, it should be a really fun series. Again, it's LSU on the road this weekend, and then they come back and play Ole Miss at home, so another top 25 squad. But this team has proven that they're up for the challenge, and they're going to keep games close against the best of them. If you can do it against Oklahoma, you'd like to think they can do it against LSU. That's going to wrap up our Diamond Sports segment. But don't go anywhere because we've got college basketball news right after this quick commercial.
So you going to Andy's party tonight?
Nah, I'm going to the 1080C meeting.
1080C? What's that?
You really haven't heard of 1080C, the single greatest film organization in all of Columbia? Well, let me tell you, they do anything and everything when it comes to film. They do drama. I have the not.
Oh, Romeo, wherefore art thou?
Horror.
Ligma, Sigma, Sugma was consumed by the three-eyed man!
And even mockumentary.
I'm not here to make friends.
Can we be friends?
Man, 1080C sounds like an experience. I guess I'll join you.
Well,
Welcome to the 1080 crew!
And the Sweet 16 for the men's NCAA tournament tipped off yesterday, Spencer, and while it got off to a little bit of a slow start, man, the nightcap was something to behold. We'll start off with, of course, that first game. It was Alabama against BYU.
It was a slow start in the competitive aspect of it, but this Alabama offense was by no means slow. I mean, a couple records being shattered there with they couldn't miss from three, man.
No, 25 of 51 from beyond the arc. 51 of their 66 field goal attempts were three-pointers. Mark Sears had 34. And it was just, the story of it was Alabama hit their threes in unbelievable fashion, and BYU didn't. For a team that was so good at shooting threes all year long, they go 6 of 30 in their biggest game. They just couldn't keep up with the Crimson Tide.
And still put up 88 points.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
they were getting what they wanted in the
Richie
paint.
Saunders had 25 for the Cougars, and then another team like BYU that held it close for a while but couldn't hang on as it kind of slipped away was the Maryland Terrapins with their circus media going on right now. There was a 2-point game at halftime. They led in the second half, but Florida. And the difference, I think, in this game, Spencer, Florida had 27 bench points.
Yeah.
Maryland had 3.
And Maryland, I mean, throughout the season, notoriously did not go to their bench at all. I mean, they're called the Crab Five because pretty much they play the whole game. You know, you can rely on that starting five. And again, Florida's defense doesn't get enough love. We talk about how their offense is rated super highly. You know, they can score at all levels and they get it from everyone. But this defense, man, they were putting Maryland through it in that second half. Alex Condon was excellent after suffering an ankle injury, coming back and, had some really timely blocks and led to a big Florida run when he had a big block on Miguel at the rim. And it's just, this Gators team is really, really good, man.
They are really good, and for Maryland, they just, they enter a very uncertain offseason, and we'll keep an eye on that. Then starting with the nightcap, it was Duke and Arizona, and man, this one was fun. Duke wins 100-93. Caleb Love had 35 points. He had 11 of their 30 field goals made from the field on the day, but it wasn't enough as Cooper Flagg. Spencer, why don't you read off this stat line for me real quick?
Yeah, so Cooper Flagg, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 blocks. It seems like every time we talk about this guy, we're naming off at least 4 or 5 stats that not only he leads the team with that day, he leads the team on the season. I mean, easily the best freshman in the country, one of the best I think we've seen in some time. He is a special, special player. And again, it was Arizona kind of battling back. They almost trailed by 20 at some points, and shots started to fall. They were getting stops, but when the going got tough, Duke just got tougher, man.
Yeah, it was just, the thing for Duke was 20 assists on their 33 made field goals. They shot nearly 60% from the field. It's going to be impossible to beat a team like that. I mean, when you're
Arizona came close.
Yeah,
really
Arizona,
did.
they tried their hearts out. And then, of course, the #1 game of the night, Texas Tech and Arkansas. And it didn't look that way for a while. The Razorbacks got out to a 16-point advantage, Spencer. They led by as many as 13 with 4:43 to go in the game. And then what happened?
The offense kind of collapsed. Texas Tech started getting stops, and then they started hitting threes. I mean, JT Toppin was great, but it was Darian Williams in the clutch. Not only did he, have the game-tying three to eventually send the game to overtime, he had the game winner with 7.8 seconds to go. It was a tough contested layup down below. And then on the other end, they stopped Arkansas's shot. It really wasn't a great last shot from Arkansas. Had a timeout.
Regulation and overtime.
But it was an awesome game. And Texas Tech, man, playing from behind for really the entire game until the very end.
Yeah, I don't know if they led maybe a little bit early, but then I don't think they led again until overtime. And it was really quite something to behold. Just two great teams going blow for blow. They were trading buckets at the end of regulation and the end of overtime. John L. Davis had 30 for Arkansas. Knox had 20.
Would have loved the ball in his hands there at the end. You want to see him get downhill. He's like a 6'9" forward that's super quick. He's great at finishing around the rim. We saw it all game. And then he doesn't get the ball to go try and tie it back for your team.
And what about Hawkins for Texas Tech making his first field goal of the game in overtime? They were playing soft defense on him because he hadn't made a shot all night, and he just lines up a three and drills it from the right wing to tie the game again. This game was this was March incarnate. It was awesome, and this sets up two Elite Eight matchups that you couldn't write a better script. Out west at 6:09 on TBS on Saturday, it's going to be Texas Tech in Florida. And then the late game in Newark, New Jersey at 8:49, it's Alabama and Duke.
It's going to be awesome. It always is. I've seen a lot of people complaining about how there's not really any Cinderella this March, but when you have teams this good, the basketball is going to be great no matter what.
We've been kind of spoiled, too, with some, crazy tournaments lately.
Yeah.
I mean, Princeton made the Sweet 16. St. Peter's made the Elite Eight. Fairleigh Dickinson and UMBC. And, we've seen a lot of Cinderella stories, and I'm not one to, harp on that. I love it. It's great. But I feel like we were due for a very chalky season.
But also,
and this year has been more top-heavy than any other.
But even if Cinderella didn't show up this year, let's not let that take away from the basketball we're seeing, because it's still great stuff, as evidenced by last night. But again, it's not just great basketball on the men's side.
No, as the women's Sweet 16 starts today, so there will be no shortage of basketball all weekend on both, the Turner family and ESPN networks.
It's all basketball, baseball. I mean, there is.
What's one of the best times of the year?
And just enjoy it, man.
Yeah, starting in Birmingham, Alabama, it's a rivalry showdown at 2:30 on ESPN as number 2 seed Duke takes on number 3 seed North Carolina. Duke, the ACC champions in the tournament, Spencer. And, they're a team that's led by, the freshman phenom Toby Fournier.
Yeah, she's been excellent for this Duke squad, but I think as a team, they are a great defensive unit. They hold teams to under 30%, I believe, from three, and that's a tough mark, especially in the tournament. How big the three ball gets, especially with offenses evolving like we've seen on the men's game. Alabama, that's all they shoot, but Duke really trying to limit opponents from deep. We saw them struggle with that against Notre Dame in a regular season matchup earlier in the year. UNC, not the best three-point shooting team, so it should be an interesting, I would say, a low-scoring matchup. But in that same region, it's our Gamecocks. They take on Maryland again for the 5th straight season, and they've won 5 straight there in that matchup. Again, these two teams met in the Elite Eight in 2023, with South Carolina winning to punch their ticket to the Final Four. So these two teams are very familiar with each other, but it was Maryland winning in a barn burner.
Yeah, maybe the game of March so far, as the Terrapins defeated Alabama 111 to 108 in double overtime. And how it even got to overtime in the first place, Maryland fouled the three-point shooter up 3 late in regulation. I mean, the epitome of brutality, but they survived. A barrage of points. I think Alabama's leading scorer had 45.
45. I believe when I was watching the game, it was 4th all-time in the NCAA women's tournament. So just Sarah Ashley Barker, we'll give you a shout-out, because I tell you what, looked like she died on the court after that.
She gave her all.
Couldn't get a 3 to fall to tie it again.
And then moving on to the nightcap over in Spokane, Washington, it's the 2 seed North Carolina State Wolfpack and the 3 seed LSU Tigers. Two teams that have gotten here on the back of massive blowouts. NC State, they were down, I believe, at half against Vermont. They came storming back and won by 20. Beat Michigan State by 34. LSU beat San Diego State by nearly 50 or nearly 60, and then beat FSU by 30 in the round of 32.
In that game against Florida State, it was a 2-point game at halftime, and LSU just stomped them out after that. It was crazy. They went up on what must have been like a 30-5 run and just really put the game out of reach. It's LSU women's basketball. They're a really good program. They've got a lot of good players, but that's not the only matchup in Spokane.
No, it's not. As the number 1 seed UCLA will take on Ole Miss, the 5 seed at 10 o'clock on ESPN. I mean, the Bruins, they've been one of the best teams all year long. They just continue to do that. But for Ole Miss, man, they beat Baylor on the road in Waco 69-63 to get here in the round of 32, and they have a tall task ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, this used a tall task. Lauren Betts down low. I mean, that's about as tough as it gets. I mean, she has been excellent this year, pretty much averaging 20 and 10. I think just under that in the rebound category, but she's been nails. This UCLA team is really good. I know I had them predicted to the Final Four. Did you?
Yeah.
I think we both did. I mean, this Bruins team, they're really great, and it makes sense why they're here, but they're not the only 4 teams in the Sweet 16. We're going to move on to see which other teams look to punch their ticket to the Elite Eight on Saturday. Starting off, it's the 3rd-seeded Fighting Irish versus number 2 TCU, and this one...
A rematch of one of the better non-conference games this season, but one nobody could watch as it was on Flow Sports. That was an unfortunate happenstance.
Heartbreaking stuff.
But TCU got the better of Notre Dame over in the Bahamas. But ever since, the Irish played really good, ended the regular season on a little bit of a down note. They've kind of gotten their swagger back in the tournament, blowing out SF Austin and Michigan. And for TCU, it's their first ever Sweet 16 appearance. Notre Dame looking to get back to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2019. So there's history versus new kind of clashing here, and it's on ABC, so this should be fun.
And there's great guard play, man. I mean, you got Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, and then for the Horned Frogs, Haley Van Lith has really resurged, and it's been great to see her in a new environment, really thriving, back to her old ways like she was at Louisville.
Absolutely. And then the 3:30 matchup in Birmingham is number 1 seed Texas, taking on the number 5 seed, the Lady Volunteers of Tennessee on ABC. For the Vols, they have appeared in every NCAA tournament ever on the women's side.
And you listen to first-year head coach Kim Caldwell saying, hey, I'm just glad I wasn't the coach to break that streak. And I was like, you know what, that would have been a tough look. But again, Tennessee, they have some big wins on the year. They've taken down UConn and took down Ohio State, a really good team in the round of 32. And now they've got 1-seeded Texas. Texas looks mighty good.
A chance to get back to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2016, Spencer. That one should be really fun. And then moving over to Spokane, 5:30 on ESPN. I mean, it's UConn women's basketball against Oklahoma. I mean, it's Paige Beckers looking for that elusive national title. A 12-game win streak for the Huskies since that loss to Tennessee, and all their wins have came by double digits, and that hasn't stopped in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no, they've looked dominant to start. Again, not a super challenging road to get where they are now, but this Oklahoma team is very good. We've seen South Carolina in that first half in the SEC tournament. It was a really, it was kind of a slugfest down low, and Oklahoma has really built up a great program for themselves. They beat Iowa by 34 in the round of 32. It's their first Sweet 16 in over a decade, 2013 marking their last one. This one has all the makings for a really good game, and unfortunately, our next game, unsure how it's going to look. It's number 1 Southern Cal versus 5th seeded Kansas State. And, you hate to see Juju Watkins tear ACL like that.
I mean, that was brutal. You could tell when it happened. I mean, it's non-contact, while you're going down the court. And it didn't look good from the onset. But Southern Cal, I mean,
they're 1 seed not just because of her.
Yeah,
they're a good team.
It's gonna be next man up, and how can they respond? Because they're going up against kind of a Cinderella team is Kansas State. It's their first Sweet 16 appearance since 2002. They upset Kentucky and Lexington in overtime in the round of 32, ending Georgia Moore's college career, and they're looking for their second ever Elite Eight appearance.
Yeah, it's a great story. They've got a good opportunity here in Kansas State. They've got some big wins on the year. They like to force a lot of turnovers, create havoc on the defensive end. I think we've got 8 really fun games on the women's side, and it's just great for basketball. And again, if you just have your TV on, chances are something good will come up. But again, for the Gamecocks, we're going to highlight their matchup against Maryland here. Again, it's a familiar foe, but let's kind of get to know them a little bit, JP. Again, in that game against Alabama, it was Tebiasu, their guard, who just dominated in overtime. I mean, making tough shot after tough shot. Just great stuff here. So we're going to take a look at that now. Again, Gamecocks lead the all-time series 6-2, a 5-game winning streak, and they've met each other recently in the 2023 Elite Eight.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just it's a star-studded matchup. I mean, Maryland kind of had maybe a down year for their standards, but they're right back in it. And, well, they finally get one over the Gamecocks. I mean, this is a very different South Carolina team than they've ever faced, truthfully. And so for Maryland, it's just going to be, how do you approach the South Carolina team? Because in past years, they've tried to go kind of, small where South Carolina goes big. Well, now South Carolina has adapted to the rest of the world of women's college basketball, and they have great guard play. They don't really play through the post as much. So it's much more of a similar stylistic matchup. And so for Maryland, does that play into your advantage, or are you about to get outgunned at your own game? For them, they're going to try and keep it in their own sight lines. I'm excited for this one, man. This should be South Carolina. They didn't look great against Indiana. I thought that would be a tough matchup for the Gamecocks, and it ended up being pretty close.
But they survived the gut punch. I think every tournament team, every great program, sometimes you don't play your best ball in the tournament, but you get through the tough game, and they've done that. Maryland, when I was watching them against Alabama, I think they're going to really struggle to guard South Carolina on the interior. Again, Barker was getting whatever she wanted for the Crimson Tide at the rim, so I think that's going to be a point of emphasis because they have to keep South Carolina's guards as well as Joyce Edwards away from the rim. Otherwise, South Carolina's going to run away from this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this should be one of the best games of the Sweet. I mean, all these Sweet 16 matchups for the women look amazing. But real quick here, we're going to head back over to the men's and preview tonight's action as the second half of the Sweet 16 looks to kick off with maybe a little bit more chaos than we've seen, at least in last night's matchups, although they're going to have a tough task living up to kind of the star-studded action we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. The first game of the night on CBS, it's 6th-seeded Ole Miss making it to the Sweet 16, and they face 2nd-seeded Michigan State Spartans in Atlanta. It's going to be a really, really fun game. I'm really excited for this one. Again, as you all know, if you've been watching the show, I'm a big fan of Michigan State and the way they play, but Ole Miss has really surprised me. I had them losing to UNC, but they survived the late comeback, and against Iowa State, just shot the lights out of the building.
Yeah, and that's been one of the more surprising things in this dance. Is Ole Miss not really a team known for their shooting, but Sean Badula, a noted three-point threat at Virginia Tech, coming over, and Dre Davis has really been good for them in timely buckets. That's his name of the game. That's what he did his whole career at Louisville and then at Seton Hall, now at Ole Miss. He's one of those guys where when the moment arises, he's not afraid of the spotlight.
And I've got some numbers here against Iowa State. Malik Dia had 18 points and 8 boards as well, and he can shoot the 3-ball. Brakefield off the bench gave him 19 points, 6 for 8 from the field. And then in that game, they shot 58% from the field and from 3. Iowa State scored 78 points and were frankly just outgunned.
Yeah, and the big thing I think for Ole Miss is how are they going to deal with the size of Michigan State. Cohen Carr had kind of a quiet game against New Mexico as the Spartans had to come back and win that one and avoid the upset. And, he was kind of quiet, but Aikens had 16 points. Holloman had 14. Michigan State did a really good job of limiting Donovan Dent. And, Ole Miss
can throw 3 to 4 guards at them. They can switch everything. They can, give your best player tough looks. I imagine they're going to do the same with Padula. But again, Spartyville, they thrive off of havoc on defense, getting into transition, and just finding the open man. I mean, one of the best highlights of the year is Cohen Carr's missed dunks. I mean, that guy, he rears back. Even if he hits back iron, you're just like, I mean, he could pull the whole goal down. Yeah. And it's just, they are so fun to watch.
Jerome.
Yeah.
But, these are two teams that have just been so clutch all year. And it's really just, I mean, no wonder they're meeting in this dance. Yeah. Tom Izzo against Chris Beard.
Chris Beard.
But I mean,
I was like, I know his name, but I don't know if we're known.
Regardless of what he's done, he is a good coach.
He is a good coach.
You know, it's a matchup befitting their pedigree. But we'll move on to a conference matchup at Indianapolis as the 2-seeded Tennessee Volunteers taking on number 3 seed Kentucky. The Vols, Spencer, you know, Rick Barnes, it always feels like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to him in March. And, well, they're facing a Kentucky team that swept them in the regular season.
Yeah, again, Kentucky 2-0 against Tennessee on the year. Kentucky looks really good. They, dominated Illinois. It was a close game, but I think defensively, they had the Illini really struggling. They had turnovers galore, and this this Kentucky defense has a great job at forcing turnovers. And on the offensive end, they can get it from many places.
Yeah, you know, they're a team that they've dealt with injuries all year long, so they've been in tournament mode for a while. Like, it's felt like their backs have been up against the wall for quite some time. And like you said, their defense, it just makes people uncomfortable. It makes life a little bit tough. And when you do that over the course of an entire game, guys get mad, they get frustrated, they start making stupid plays. And, you know, Rick Barnes' teams are not noted for their IQ. You know, they're not noted for their high basketball IQ.
And Tennessee's road to get here, again, they beat 15-seed Wofford 77-62. That score does not indicate how close that game is. That's all I'll say. I mean, Wofford was hanging in.
Chaz Lanier has been really, keeping this team afloat.
For Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, he was awesome in that one. 29 points. And then in their second round game, again, had another 20. He's shooting really well from 3 right now. He's 4 for 5 in their last game to make it here to the Sweet 16 as they took down UCLA. But his supporting cast played a lot better in that one, and we're shooting the ball well.
Yeah, and for Tennessee, I think it's just going to be a lot of how can you deal with the speed. It's a matchup of styles. Kentucky, they like to get out and running. Tennessee's going to
26 points off turnovers against Illinois.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to like to, you know, kind of slow things down, take the air out of the ball, you know, not do anything until there's under 10 on the shot clock, and really kind of limit possessions. And, you know, it's going to be who can impose their will first. And I'm really excited to see this. Then we'll move on back to Atlanta for a great night action between Michigan and Auburn. Michigan
battle on the block, man.
Yeah, Michigan coming
awesome.
all the way back against Texas A&M to really kind of handle this one. They pulled away late, winning 91-79, but Golden had 23 and 12. Wolf had 14 and 9, and Roddy Gale Jr. had 26 points
game of
on
his life,
50%
man.
shooting. And for A&M, it was another game. They just, you know, they just couldn't shoot.
They A&M'd, man.
Yeah, Wade Taylor IV went out. Hey, he went out how he lived, and
shooting about 25 shots a game.
Yeah.
It didn't go their way. But for the Tigers, again, they escaped a close one against Creighton. That game very close at halftime. They finally pulled away at the end. And I think the key to that, Tahad Pettiford. He navigates screens with the best of them. He's really good at using his body. And that mid-range floater of his, chef's kiss, man. It is beautiful.
And it's going to be a needed weapon against Michigan because Michigan's bigs like to pack the paint so much. You know, you're going to have to get it up over the head of Golden and Wolf. And Pettiford had 23 to go along with 6 rebounds and 3 assists. Denver Jones had 15, and Chad Baker-Mazara had 17 to really kind of pick up Janai Brome, who didn't have a great game against Kalkbrenner down low. And, well, if Auburn struggled down low against Kalkbrenner, they're going to struggle against Golden and Wolf.
It's like there's 2 of them.
Yeah. it's like they did it, but they did it again, and there's 2 of them now. This is going to happen.
They cloned.
But the thing is, Michigan also gets tremendous guard play. You know, this is Dusty May in his first year in Ann Arbor. He's got them knocking on the door of an Elite 8 appearance, and really, it's not a bad matchup for Michigan. I'm excited for this one.
And all I'm saying is if Michigan wins, and if Michigan State wins, that would be something.
That would bring up, it doesn't get more March than this.
Yeah, Detroit Airport would be swamped with everyone trying to get to Atlanta at the end of the weekend. We've got one more game to talk about. Again, it's Purdue, Houston, back in Indianapolis, so kind of a home game for Purdue. Unfortunate draw for Houston. But, again, this one's going to be really, really exciting. Purdue, I think we just have to speak to their great coaching. How they got Trey Kaufman-Wren going in against High Point and against McNeese. They dominated, just picking on the Cowboys in the screen and roll game, but just navigating how they switch defenders. It was brilliant stuff.
They had no answer for it. And for Purdue, it's a lot like when you watched UConn this year. They're not as good as they've been the last several years, but you see the blueprint in action, and you see just kind of the latent DNA of those championship teams, and you're like, wow. I mean, this is just it's tremendous coaching, it's tremendous buy-in from the roster, and it's why you look at these graphics where it's like the rosters of the Sweet 16 teams and where they started in college or where they played in college last year. And Purdue, it's like, wow, Purdue has
Pretty
their
much
entire
their whole 35,
it's their entire team, and you just see that continuity, and that's what plays such a big factor, and it's why. Plus, it's a home game. I think this might be one of the best games of the tournament so far.
You mentioned championship DNA. Houston looking for their first in some time, but again, Kelvin Sampson's got this team playing better than I think they ever have been.
Yeah, and they really showed it against Gonzaga as L.J. Cryer put up 30, Juwan Roberts at 18. I mean, it was Houston's offense really rising to the occasion, not something you typically see. But, man, this is going to be fun.
It's going to be a really great matchup. Again, Houston pretty far from home, looking to make the Elite Eight again. But that's all we've got for you today. We'll be right back after a quick break with this week's Pick'ems to wrap up another episode of Ball Don't Lie.
Get ready to meet the cast of Carolina Tonight. He's the above-average letterbox patron. It's Jamie Bass. She would rather be anywhere else. It's Chloe Brown. They come in to find no one at the surprise party. It's Harry Burgess. His OnlyFans is mostly clips from him on the show. It's Samuel Kander. She's been caught red-handed. It's Ishveen Gujral. He's slaying the house down. It's Will Gunter. She wants something that she wants. It's Liv Moody. He got kicked out of Harvard for anger issues. It's James Nolan. He completely blew this take. It's Tyler Perrone. He's verbally berating the customer service line. It's Billy Petty. He's wittily gwittying onto the stage. It's Jacob Perdue. She's here to tell you, beat it, nerd. It's Fiona Schreier. Often mistaken for someone more famous, it's Camden Speck. He can't find his locker on the first day. It's Asher Thompson. The person in the audition they didn't tell you about is Olivia Wamai. He procrastinated editing this video. It's Jonathan E. Come watch Carolina Tonight in Russell Underground.
And welcome back to Ball Don't Lie Pick'ems. After last week, I'm sitting at 51-34, and Spencer's sitting at 59-26. I think this is definitely the best we've ever done on Pick'ems, so we're going out.
Especially in a calendar year. I mean, we're both over the 500 mark, and maybe for the first time.
I mean, it's impressive. But we'll start, of course, with men's basketball with today's matchups. Ole Miss, Michigan State. I mean, do I even have to ask, Spencer?
Pick up your sword and spear, man.
Your sword. Hey, whatever. Michigan State, Ole Miss. Whatever happened there?
I'm picking the Spartans. I can't speak today, but I'm going with the Spartans. I just think they're going to make it much harder for Ole Miss to shoot the three as well as they have been doing. And on the offensive end, again, they get it from everybody. I expect a big bounce-back game from Jace Richardson.
I think Cohen Carr has a big game as well. And, in the locker room, Tom Izzo's would be like, tonight, we died in, I don't know, East Lansing, I guess. But Michigan State gets the win. I had to throw a 300 reference in somewhere here.
Do they have good eats up there?
It's East Lansing. But yeah, Michigan State for me. Then we'll move on now to Kentucky against Tennessee. Who's going to impose their will here?
Give me the Wildcats, man. I really like this team, even though they've lost one of their starters for the year a couple weeks back. Kentucky, I really like the way they attack. I feel like Tennessee, as you mentioned, they like to kill off the shot clock. If you wait for something to happen, Kentucky's going to take the game to you.
Yeah, and that's what I think is going to happen. Give me the Wildcats as well. Now we move on, Michigan and Auburn. This one's tough, Spencer.
This one is tough. I'm going to go with the Tigers here just because I feel like Michigan's really been playing with fire. I think it's going to be a close game, but again, I love Tahad Pettiford. I think he's going to be really the engine for them, but also I think he's going to have to help get Janai Broome going in a bit of a two-man game here.
Yeah, it's how much can Michigan continue to get away with it? It feels like they've been living by the skin of their teeth. I almost really want to pick them because I think it's a tough matchup.
I do. I think it's going to be a close one.
I can't go against Auburn. Auburn's they've been too good all year long.
And you can't pick Michigan.
I can't pick Michigan.
It's really hard.
Give me the Tigers. Now our last men's matchup is Houston takes on Purdue.
Now this one's close. I'm going to go with the Cougars here, but I think it is an excellent game. Again, 10:09 tip-off. Where else are you going to be? I just think L.J. Cryer's too much, and I think Matt Painter is an excellent coach, but I think Kelvin Sampson is too. I think they draw up a really great defense, and I think they're the only team so far that can actually match up with Trey Kaufman-Renn down low.
Yeah, I just, I've been staring at this for a while, and it's like I want to pick Houston really bad. I think Houston will win. And it's just hard. But it's hard to get. It's hard to bet against Purdue at home. They're starting to really gel so well, and Houston, they just can never get it done. They just can't get it done.
You'd be betting with history.
I'd be betting with history, and I think Purdue. I think Brendan Smith has a big game. I think TKR has a big game. Give me Purdue. Pretty much at home, right down the road from West Lafayette.
That'd be really fun. We're going to move on to women's basketball, starting with the Friday matchups. It's Duke versus UNC. JP, who you going with?
I think Duke gets it done. Their defense is too good. Fournier's too good. Ashlyn Jackson is too good.
Couldn't have said it better. Again, I think Duke's defense is. I think it's the real deal, and I think they're gonna slow down UNC a whole lot. Again, moving on to the other game in Birmingham, it's number 1 South Carolina versus 4th-seeded Maryland. You going with the Gamecocks here?
I got to go with the Gamecocks.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really close, but I think South Carolina ekes it out late.
I think this is where South Carolina asserts their dominance in the tournament. We haven't seen it so far yet. I think they beat Maryland big. I think Maryland has a lot of holes in their game, and no better coach than Dawn Staley to know exactly how to push those buttons. Moving out west, it's NC State versus LSU. You got in this one.
These are two high-powered offenses going up against each other. But give me the Wolfpack. I think NC State just has a little bit too much star power to them this year for LSU. Flau'jae Johnson just can't do it alone.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Wolfpack here. Isaiah James is maybe the best shooter in the country. I mean, she's electric with the ball in her hands. And Sanaya Rivers, the Gamecock transfer, is a great job of leading that offense, ball-handling guard. Excellent passer. Give me the Wolfpack. In the nightcap there, it's UCLA versus Ole Miss. I'm going with the Bruins here.
Yeah, Bruins. I think Bruins in a big one.
Yeah, I think they're just going to dominate down low. We're going to move on to Saturday's game as 2nd-seeded TCU versus 3rd-seeded Notre Dame. JP, I don't even need to ask, but tell me why.
Well, it's just Notre Dame, for the vast majority of the season, was one of the best teams in all of women's college basketball. But then you lose to North Carolina State. You lose on senior night to Florida State. You lose in the ACC tournament to Duke. And all of a sudden everyone's wondering, what is wrong with Notre Dame?
Where's the team of old?
What happened to the team that beat UConn? They beat Tennessee. They beat Texas. They beat all these teams. Well, they've shown in these first 2 rounds of the tournament that team is still in there somewhere, blowing out SF Austin, and then they're up by as many as 30 on Michigan. And it comes down to this against TCU, where you're playing a team that already beat you this year, and when you lost to TCU, it spurred a 19-game winning streak. Now you get a chance against TCU after you lost 3 of 5, and it's a chance to rewrite history. It might be, every last quarter, it's 1 quarter closer. You maybe never be able to see Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, and Citron on the court together. You don't really have to say anything other than that. I think Leatu King gets going really well. Koval down low is going to be a little bit too much for TCU to handle. Give me the Irish in an upset.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Irish as well. I don't know if it'd be considered an upset.
I think we're betting favorites,
seed,
but seed line-wise, yeah.
I think Coach Ivy's great. I think she's going to have the Irish, ready to play. You've got history there, but you've got history to learn from. I think they do just that, and I think they shoot the lights out and take down the Horned Frogs. And in that same region, it's number 1 Texas versus number 5 Tennessee. I'm going to go with the Longhorns here. I just think they have too much. And although I could see Tennessee keeping it close, Madison Booker's the best player on the court here.
Yeah, she is. And Texas, it has the feel of a team of destiny for the Longhorns. So I'm picking them to win as well.
Yeah, moving out west again, it's number 2 UConn versus number 3 Oklahoma. Who you got in this one?
This one's really tough. Oklahoma, all their losses are to ranked tournament teams this year. So it's kind of hard to pick against a team that's proven themselves unless they're playing, the titan of the sport. It's UConn. It's UConn women's basketball. I think Paige Beckers isn't going to let this one end until at least the Final Four. Give me the Huskies.
Yeah, it's her career on the line, man. And what's going to be her last games for UConn? I think she keeps it going here as they take down the Sooners. It's number 1 Southern Cal versus 5th-seeded Kansas State. Again, the nightcap here on Saturday. JP, this one's tough to pick.
It's tough to pick. You don't know. You have no idea how Southern Cal is going to look without Juju Watkins. but we know how Kansas State looks when they're playing well, and I just think that they keep this Cinderella train rolling back to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2002.
I'm going to go with the Wildcats, too. Again, we just haven't seen the Trojans without Juju Watkins, so we're not quite sure exactly what kind of performance they're going to be able to put up, and Kansas State is no slouch. I've got the Wildcats as well, and that's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball, and from all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.